Good morning and good afternoon, depending when you are listening to us. Welcome to USME Central webinar series today on how to do business in South China in Pearl River Delta. For this topic, we have invited today Mr. Nathan Janssen, who is joining us from Shenzhen, and I will give floor to him a little bit later. At the beginning, as is our custom, I will a little bit our USME Center, which is a project funded in 2010 by European Commission with aim to provide support to small and medium-sized enterprises from Europe when they decide to invest or export their products, provide services in China. We provide support and advice in the four areas, which is business and development, legal and taxation, standards and conformity, and HR. And here you can see the tools by which we are assisting to the companies. First, it's a knowledge center, which is a library or more than 100 publications and guidelines. We provide as well advice on a daily basis via email or face-to-face consultation, replying to various questions. We organize trainings both in Europe and in China, and as well we provide hot desking services in Beijing. And now it's a moment to give a floor to Mr. Nathan Janssen, who will introduce a little bit more himself and his experience, and as well the topics on the agenda he is going to speak about. Nathan, floor is yours.
Welcome everybody. My name is Nathan Janssen, and today I will be talking about Pearl River Delta, doing business in South China. And thank you very much for the European SME Center for giving me the opportunity to host this webinar. So for today, I will be talking about a few things. First, I will start with a little overview of the PRD, the Pearl River Delta. Then I will talk some numbers and trends, what has been happening over the past few years compared to the years before. Then I will discuss the special economic zones and free trade zones, which might be of interest to some people here. And lastly, I will be talking about specific opportunities, but during the whole presentation I will be talking about opportunities as well, because I'm going to be talking about the characteristic of the PRD and where the difference lies compared to other areas in China. A little bit about myself. My name is Nathan Janssen. I'm from the Netherlands and I have done my bachelor's and master's at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. I first came to China in 2012. I was an intern at the company I'm a partner at now. We help Western companies set up in China, and via this company I got a lot of experience with other companies via proxy as well in doing business in China. Myself, I have helped personally over 25 companies with their business in China. Our company itself, 1421, has helped over 100 companies in 5 years. And in Shenzhen, I am based as the general manager. I have lived in Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai, and now Shenzhen. 1 year before in Guangzhou, and now have been living in Shenzhen for 1.5 years. So that gives me a little insight of what is different compared to in the South China compared to the rest of China. Let's first talk a little bit about geographics. Here you have a little map of China. On it you see the three main areas where business takes place for Westerners. Often you've got the Beijing area in the north with Shenzhen nearby, and then you have a little below you've got the Zhejiang province. That's where you have Shanghai, and at the bottom circle, the bottom red circle, we are at the Pearl River Delta in the Guangdong province, circling Macau and Hong Kong, the whole area. That is what I'm going to be talking about today. If we zoom in a little bit extra, we have the Guangdong province and especially the Pearl River Delta. The Pearl River Delta, we exclude Macau and Hong Kong for this presentation. We will focus on the Greater China part. And the main cities here, as you can see, are Guangzhou, Shenzhen, Dongguan, Shunde, Foshan, Zhongshan, Zhuhai, and some surrounding cities. So what is special about the Pearl River Delta is that it's close to Hong Kong, one of the colonies of England before, and Hong Kong was a good start for international trade, and that boosted the rest of the area as well. And because everything is close to the sea, transportation is very easy in this area. If we talk about the Pearl River Delta, we have a saying here, which is the sky is high and the emperor is far away. This means, this is an old saying, and this means that while the government was in Beijing, the south of China was more focused on trade and business. And this spirit has been living on for now as well, still going strong. You really notice a difference between the people in South China and the people in Beijing. And there's a real entrepreneurial spirit here. In 1992, in the summer tour of Deng Xiaoping, he went to Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Zhuhai, and he saw the potential of opening up China to start with in Shenzhen. And like I said before, the Pearl River Delta is surrounded around the Pearl River. The Pearl River was named appropriately because it used to be so clear that you could see the rocks on the bottom, which look like pearls. Right now the river is less clear, but that is to be expected with such a huge industry in the area. So for the Pearl River Delta itself, for 25 years long, it was leading in the GDP growth in the People's Republic of China. It really was booming here for a long time. It's still going strong. And many of you have heard of the world's factory when they talk about China, but that might be more appropriate for the Pearl River Delta, because in this area you've got so many industries, so many factories, so many workshops, sweatshops. Almost everything you can think of is probably made here. The Pearl River Delta itself, for the world's factory, right now it's competing with the Jiangsu province. My apologies, Jiangsu province, which is also in China, but also Southeast Asia. So that is where there is some competition, because the labor costs are rising, and thus factories sometimes have to relocate to still be profitable. As said before, the proximity to Hong Kong is a huge benefit for the Pearl River Delta, has been and still is today. In Hong Kong, there's a different jurisdiction. So Hong Kong has a very strong financial center. And many companies used to have and still have their holding company in Hong Kong, and then a entity below that in China. In Guangdong, there are also a few free trade zones. In Nansha, which is in Guangzhou, Hengqin, Zhuhai, and Qianhai, which is in Shenzhen. Currently, the Pearl River Delta is transforming from a factory hub to a high-tech hub. And this is something which is especially the case for Shenzhen, where there is a lot of R&D and a lot of high-tech already. The size, if we talk about some statistics, the size of the area is around 56,000 square kilometers, which is roughly the size of Croatia. The population is divided in 9 cities, is around 30.2 million. And here you can see a little scale of how it's divided. As you can clearly see, Guangzhou and Shenzhen are by far the biggest in the area. but also Dongguan and Foshan should not be dismissed. To be honest, many of these cities here dwarf European cities. Myself, coming from the Netherlands, Amsterdam, I don't think even would fit on the pie. It would be so small, and that's our biggest city. So that's just to give some perspective. The GDP is also huge here. It's 663 billion euros per year, which is roughly the same as the GDP from the Netherlands, where I come from, or the Swiss GDP, and that is just one area in China, not even a province, just an area. To talk about the two giant cities here in the Pearl River Delta, Shenzhen has a nominal GDP of 251 billion euros, and per capita it's 23,593 euros, which is quite high. But of course, this is not evenly spread out. There are wealthy, very, very wealthy people here, and of course you have the factory workers who earn way less than this. Still, it's an indication. For Guangzhou, it's a bigger city. There is a bigger GDP as well from that city, but in this city the GDP per capita is a bit lower. But still, these are higher than I think many of you expected to be for China, and this is an opportunity, because this also means there is a huge market to sell products. If we look at the GDP growth from 2006 to 2014, we can see that the growth has been going down, but for Shenzhen and Guangzhou, it's still higher than the average in China, and it almost always has been, except for a little dip in 2010, where Guangzhou dipped a little bit below China. Shenzhen has always been growing a bit faster. If we go take a look at this picture, this graph I found on LinkedIn just before setting up this webinar. Yeah, for me it was very interesting to see that by 2030 there will be quite a lot of Chinese cities that are in a big top ranked by GDP. But I wanted to show you this this graph because Guangzhou, Guangdong, and Shenzhen together, because they are only 3 hours apart. If you go slow, 1.5 hours if you are not stuck in traffic. So those two together will be topping the chart for sure, and that is something which is a huge benefit of this area. Everything is you've got a lot of huge opportunities, potential big booming cities that are already booming at this point. They're close together. They're within 1 hour's drive in the Pearl River Delta. 65 million people live, and that's just amazing. And those numbers are mind-boggling. I also wanted to go into free trade zones and special economic zones, because those are areas in China which have some different regulations. And in the Pearl River Delta, there are three special economic zones, and free trade zones are also in China, but these are a bit different, so I will go into it. So the three free trade zones and special economic zones in the Pearl River Delta are Nansha in Guangzhou, Hengqin in Zhuhai, and Qianhai in Shenzhen. So the areas, they have a different focus of what kind of industry they want to attract and where they offer their benefits. For Nansha, they focus mostly on manufacturing, shipping, and leisure tourism, which means that for these companies, if your company is in this area, is in this industry, the area of Nansha might be very interesting for you. And the local governments can offer you very nice tax benefits and will help you set up quite easily if you are from one of these areas. For Shenzhen and Zhuhai, the big benefit is a cooperation with Macau. Macau is a former colony of Portugal, also very close to all the other cities, and it's more or less grown into Zhuhai. So Macau is famous for its casino industry, and in Shenzhen there's a lot of attraction to companies that want to do something with this. And still, of course, all the other benefits of the Pearl River Delta count for that area as well. For Shanghai in Shenzhen, the big focus is finance, taxation, and telecommunications. For companies like this, which reflects a little bit of what the companies are in Hong Kong. For these companies, there are a lot of opportunities and very, very nice tax breaks, for example, if they go to Shanghai. Free trade zones are different than special economic zones. So in free trade zones often occur together with special economic zones. The difference is that special economic zones have the benefit that they can offer tax breaks, and if you're interested in this, I can give you more information about this. Tax breaks, they are very steep requirements for this though. They can give you tax breaks of 10% for your individual income or even for your profit income. For the free trade zones, the big benefit there is that it's easier for import and export. For example, custom clearances in a free trade zone, the declaration only has to be done after goods enter. And also there's a collective declaration, which is a big benefit for a free trade zone, and the tax payments are centralized. Something which is also unique to a free trade zone is that you can ship between domestic ports for foreign ships, and this is not something which can be done outside of a free trade zone. Of the 3 special economic zones I just talked about, and these all 3 have free trade zones next to it, but there are some parts, for example in Shenzhen you've got the Shekou area, where our office is based I'm at right now. This is also a free trade zone, but it's not a special economic zone. So for import and export companies, this area can have some benefits. Another benefit is that goods can be delivered in the zone, and you don't have to pay the import duty on it yet. It can be imported. You can have more or less your warehouse here without it being in China. Once you sell it, you can then have to pay your import taxes and duties. So for the special economic zones, the advantages, like I said, it depends per zone. And if your company is focused in the industry of area of the zone, the breaks can be, for example, the enterprise tax, which can be lowered from 25% to 15 or 10%. And the individual income for foreign experts that work at the companies above can be lowered as well. Now, these, of course, sound like that would not be a reason to not set up in this special economic zone. But after informing, it does seem that the companies which these tax breaks will be granted to have to be of quite some size. They have to have a large revenue already outside of China, and the investment in China also needs to be quite large. So these tax breaks might not be for every company. So that's a little warning before you think you already got this. It will be granted after approval, and for the enterprise tax, for the individual income tax for foreign experts, first you need to be seen as a foreign expert. Then you have to work in China for 1 year for one of the companies that already has been granted the tax break. And at the end of the year, you can declare and get a refund if granted to you for quite a sizable amount of money. So let's talk a bit about trends. Sorry for this, I see the picture is a bit on the text that was supposed to happen. But for 73% of the Western companies in South China, they see increase of revenue. And all the trends I'm going to talk about here, one are specific for South China. This is compared to the rest of China. So these are not things which is natural to China. This is something benefits and good, probably good trends, some lesser trends, lesser positive trends, specific for South China. So 73% of the Western companies in South China, they see year-on-year increase, which is more, as you can see, than the rest of China, where it's only 60%, only compared, of course, to the 73%. These results come from the South China position paper of the European Chamber in China. They did a big test with all companies that are members of them to see what's reflecting as specific to South China. So another trend is that there are lower EBIT margins, and there's less optimism about business compared to previous year. Like I said, some trends are less than positive, but I prefer to be honest and that you have an idea what the big boom has happened and things are changing. So for many companies that have been manufacturing here or just been getting products, it would have been better, of course, to have been in yesterday. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, and the second best time is today. And this counts for China as well. And there are some main issues specific to South China as well. So when you look at the 5 bullet points on the right, you can see that the top challenges for the rest in China was the slowdown of the economy. And this has dropped to the second place, and with a lesser percentage in South China, because the cities here are still growing relatively quicker at a better rate than the rest of China, and also rising labor costs, which you might have heard are a problem of doing business in China. Those are a bigger problem in South China, where manufacturing, getting products is a huge industry. So then, of course, if you have got more expensive labor, then this is a bigger problem. And this has been a problem for the past few years here in South China, and especially more compared to the rest of China. You can also see that renminbi volatility is higher here. That is a challenge, and that's also because, of course, of the trade. Now, I've been talking about that the fact that there's a lot of trade going and a lot of things are being manufactured here. And as you can see here, 53% of Western companies, they provide goods or services to the European market, and in the rest of China, it's different. So there are more services. Of the companies that are in the Pearl River Delta, more than 1/3 of the European companies here have research and development centers. And that is because products are being made, but also it is being transformed, this region, to a high-tech hub. And you see that they're all around. In Shenzhen, for example, you've got Tencent, here you've got the DJI, the drones that are here. You've got a lot of different IT groups, and that's only Shenzhen. Yeah, of course I'm talking about Shenzhen a lot because I live here, but this is all around in the Pearl River Delta. Also, a nice trend is that there are less problems with air pollution compared to the rest of China, and that's because we're close to the sea. Even though there are a lot of factories nearby, the sea air just blows through. So the climate is quite nice. It's subtropic. Can be a bit hot in summer. Luckily, almost everywhere you've got AC, but outside the air quality is better than the rest of China. To give a summary of the opportunities in the Pearl River Delta. So in the Pearl River Delta, it's still booming, and looking at the GDP, the middle class, the rise of that, in my opinion, is probably the biggest opportunity. And even if you just look at China in general, yes, the rising middle class is a big plus. But if you are in the Pearl River Delta, you've got Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Zhuhai, you've got Foshan, Dongguan, you've got all these cities very close to each other, and with a culture which is quite comparable to between the cities. Because if you look at China itself, between Shanghai and Beijing and the south of China, there's a huge difference in culture. It's just different in their behavior as consumers, and therefore I think in the Pearl River Delta, if you focus on the middle class, I don't think you could go wrong here, because you have just such a big market, and if you enter China, I think this is a very good place to start. And also, if you manufacture here, you come here with products for the middle class. It's nice that it can be done quite locally. The infrastructure is here already. It has been the factory of the world for decades, and the Pearl River Delta has simply everything around. You can find almost any factory you need for any cog, or you want a mold for your plastic, you want some chips being made, you want a specific kind of rubber. I couldn't name it, but you can find it here. And besides that, the research and development is also quite strong. High tech is quite strong. A lot of very nice inventions are being done here. And once again, it's an urban mega hub. This will be especially the case when the Hong Kong-Macau Zhuhai bridge is finished. There will be more metros. There's already a metro going from Foshan to Zhuhai and Guangzhou. There's a metro line from Shenzhen to Hong Kong. There's a train direct from Hong Kong to Guangzhou. It's everything is interconnected, and that makes it very easy to go from city to city and get to the rising middle class. If you look at how to do business in the Pearl River Delta, you have a few options. And this is where our company specializes in, and to giving you clear advice on these options. So first off, you can of course do everything from abroad. You can try to tackle the market from outside of China. You can try to maybe do some sales via e-channels like Taobao or Tmall, and get a foot on the ground like that. Do some marketing already. Many companies, especially in the past, they set up a Hong Kong Limited, and with this Hong Kong Limited, it was easier to set up than a company in China, and this allowed them to be quite close and already start doing business. These days, the big benefit of Hong Kong Limited isn't there anymore. It's also not necessary to have a Hong Kong Limited, especially if you want to be in China. If you want to target and create revenue in China, we actually advise that you set up a company here. If you really want to be here, you have to be here. And that can be done via WOFE, Wholly Foreign Owned Enterprise. Sometimes it's also spelled WOFE. That's easy to pronounce, but the acronym is incorrect. So the WOFE is more or less the standard entity for businesses in China. You have three different WOFEs. You have the basic one, which is the consulting WOFE. They have the opportunity, they've got the license to sell services. If you also want to do import and export, this needs to be tackled in advance and written down in advance, and an import and export license then needs to be applied for. The last WOFE type is the manufacturing WOFE. and that is a movie which of course is quite numerous in this area. And for this movie you need a manufacturing plant, and you need the location for it. Joint ventures are an option as well. This is the same entity as a movie, except there are Chinese shareholders. And lastly, you can of course enter the Pearl River Delta via a third party, via an agent, and this might be a good start to get foot in the door and get some clientele already. So the takeaways from me, for the overview of the Pearl River Delta, it's tremendous how much is happening here. And I'm talking about the Pearl River Delta in specifics. Once again, there are so many cities around, and you've got Shenzhen, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Dongguan, Foshan. Everything is quite close. The statistics, they don't lie. The GDP is really going strong here. For the trends, for manufacturing itself and getting the products here might be difficult, but still the optimism is higher than the rest of China, and there is a huge middle class which you can tackle. There are 3 special economic zones here in the Pearl River Delta. You've got Chongqing, Zhuhai, and Nansha, and all of them have free trade zones. There are more free trade zones scattered around as well. And the opportunities, of course, like I said, are the manufacturing opportunities. The infrastructure is here. Also, the middle class. Once again, I'm repeating myself, but I really want to stress this. The research development is quite high in the area compared to the rest of China, and everything is close. That's just very nice. So I want to thank you for listening to me and sticking with me for these past 30 minutes. If you want any other information whatsoever, you can contact me at the contact information below. My telephone number is even there if you want to give a quick call. Sending an email, of course, is also possible. So thank you once again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, I think there's an opportunity to upload your questions, and we will then answer